may have noticed that at the beginning of a piece of music, there's two numbers on top of each other. They almost look like a mathematical fraction. This is what we call a time signature. The time signature tells us two things. The top number tells us how many counts or beats per bar. What's the second number on the bottom? It tells us exactly how much each one of those beats is worth. In this example, the top number is telling us to play 4 by whatever the bottom number is. If you think of the bottom note like a mathematical fraction, where 2 is a half and 4 represents a quarter, basically this is saying to play quarter notes, or what we also call as crotchets. So in this example, the top number, number 4, is telling us to play 4 of the quarter notes, which is represented by the bottom number. So it's telling us to play 4 quarter notes per bar. Now if this is all a little too confusing and you've already gone cross-eyed, let's simplify it. Let's cook up a nice hearty piece of apple pie. So let's pretend that this apple pie represents 1 bar of music, or what we sometimes call a unit of measure. So let's start at the bottom number. The bottom number works like a mathematical fraction. So for example, a 2 is a half and a 4 is a quarter. So let's divide the pie up in 4 equal parts, or into 4 quarters. One of these quarters represents a note, which is also called a crotchet. So if we go back to the top number tells us how many of the notes represented in the bottom number to play at each bar. Sounds complex, but basically it's saying to play 4 quarter notes, and that would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. This will keep repeating within the song. So for example, if we were to play 1 bar of the G chord, 1 bar of the C chord, it would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on until the song finishes. This time signature is also called 4/4 time. That's because at the top of this time signature there's a 4, and the bottom of the time signature there's also another 4. So that's called 4/4. This is going to be the most common time signature that you'll ever play. It is so common that sometimes we call it common time. So sometimes the 4/4 is replaced by the letter C at the beginning of a piece of music instead of a time signature, representing common time. Now that we know that the bottom number represents a quarter note or a crotchet note, we can now change or play around with the top number. So for example, let's change the top number to a 3. This makes it 3/4 time. Although nowhere near as popular as 4/4 time or common time, 3/4 time is quite popular in limericks, folk music and country music. So let's go back to the pie. To make this 3/4 rather than 4/4, all we need to do is take out one of the notes. So the top number says we have to play 3 crotchet or quarter notes per bar. It would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. I know, some of you may be saying, look, if you cut a pie into 3, doesn't that make a third, not a quarter? Well, that's actually true, but it all comes down to common time. Common time is a standard template for all time in music. So all music notes, quavers, semibreves, crotchets, etc., are all based around and refer to the timing of common time. So, like we do with 3/4, we can actually start changing the top number, and the value of the quarter note still remains the same. So if we change the top number to a 5, play 5/4, this means that we play 5 quarter notes. We might call them crotchets, or 5 even beats or note across the bar. I think if you start playing other time signatures, it's probably easy to call these things crotchets rather than quarter notes. Otherwise it can get quite confusing. But at the same time, it's important to show you what the number 4 actually means at the bottom of the time signature. So this is just a basic overview of 2 of the most common time signatures that you'll be asked to play, both 3/4 and 4/4. However, there's a whole world of time signatures out there. For example, you may be asked to play 5/4 or 7/4 or 3/8. The list just keeps on growing. But for me to show you that, I need to bake another pie. So for now, let's just stick to 3/4 and common time, which is 4/4. Time signatures, just a piece of pie really.